about pertinent. Yes, we are recording. So pertinent cultural information about Afghans. And that, of course, is extremely timely today with all that's happening. Our guest and speaker is Dr. Sultana Salam, who is an Afghan-American immigrant arriving here in 1980. She is a board-certified psychiatrist by profession, a wife, mother, and grandmother, and a member of the Afghan Association of Central Virginia. She was very helpful to reestablish Richmond in facilitating a series of emotional support groups for Afghan women and has been a wonderful presence in the Richmond community. So we look forward to hearing from you, Dr. Salam, and welcome.
Thank you very much for that introduction. I'm sorry I spoke ahead.
No problem.
It's kind of new, you know, this whole system of Zoom meetings is new to me. Well, anyway, again, thank you for that wonderful introduction. And again, it's my pleasure and honor to be able to talk about this. And of course, my thanks to all of you that want to learn about this. It's definitely very important. And again, it tells me how much you people care. So getting to the subject, how much time do I have? Half an hour or some, you know, I'm just curious.
It's an hour total, and then there's some time for Q&A.
Yeah, because I was thinking maybe, you know, maybe 40 minutes and then allow people to have Q&A. Okay. So now let's see. So we're going to talk about the Afghan culture. And of course, as we all know, I'm sure all of you know that culture is shaped by not only nature, but man as well. And the nature part, that's why I have this map in front of you, is to see that the geographical location of Afghanistan, it is, as you can see, surrounded by countries. There's no sea, there's no water. It's landlocked basically. And the terrain, very harsh terrain, a lot of mountains, which explains why people are so isolated in Afghanistan compared to other parts of the world. And they never made boats or ships because they didn't have a sea to use, I guess. So and they do have resources, but again, if you can look at the map, you have Iran on the east, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, then China on the far northwest, northeast, and then you have India. Now I say India because when Afghanistan was flourishing, or at least when it was in existence about, 500, 600 BC, there was no Pakistan. Pakistan just began or came to existence in 1948. So this was India basically when Afghanistan was existing. And again, I hope nobody's offended by that, but I'm just trying to talk about why it was India, because the Indian Empire had a lot of impact on Afghanistan, as did Iran. But these areas extending from Iran all the way to the northeast, whereas China and some of the Central Asian countries, and then India, northern India, were part of the so-called Afghan region per se. And then all these influences have affected the culture and shaped it. So going back to man, as you can see from the history of Afghanistan, let me go here. Man influences the development of culture because of the values they bring, the habits, the ways of life that they introduce to a new country. And I'm going to go over, for example, Afghanistan was not Afghanistan. It was called Khorasan, Ariana before. And again, like I mentioned, to the areas that were between Iran and Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. In 1747, it got its name as Afghanistan, and that's when it was delineated. The whole, the boundaries of it was delineated by Ahmad Shah Durrani, who was a Pashtun. So the term Afghan or Afghanistan is always synonymous with Pashtuns. Why? Because all of the king was the first king that established Afghanistan and then continued with other kings in Afghanistan were all Pashtuns. So Pashtun and Afghan go hand in hand, they're synonymous. And of course the location is still, they're in disagreement. I've read so many of these different articles and books, and They used to be called Afghanistan, Middle East, then Central Asia, then Southeast Asia, and now they're calling it South Central Asia. So they still are trying to decide what location or what kind of a location to give to it. But generally, Afghanistan was under the Persian rule. They had the Cyrus the Great, was the Babylonian empires again, and Darius for hundreds of years. Until then, Alexander the Great came in. And I'll tell you why I'm mentioning all this, because all these people had influence on the Afghan culture. We had the Greco-Bactrian empires and 326 BC. Alexander the Great was there almost 3 years until his soldiers were exhausted from trying to get to the Amu River, which is the Oxus River towards the Caucasus, even though the Caucasus Mountains are this way, but he was looking for Besus. So anyway, he was there for 3 years. Then we had other Indo-Greek kingdoms that came. And I'm sorry, let me go back. And we had the Mauryan Empire, Ashoka, which is also pronounced Ashoka the Great. The Indian king had a great empire who introduced Buddhism. Now, before Buddhism in Afghanistan, we had Zoroastrianism, which was the worshippers of fire or the sun for many, many hundreds of years. Zoroaster, and it still persists in some parts of Afghanistan. And then I'll come back to the New Year's, that they still celebrate the New Year's according to the Zoroastric religion. But anyway, Buddhism came in, and in 260 BC, and we had the Mahayana Buddhist Kushan Empire that took over for hundreds of years until 637 AD, or Christian era, when the Arabs came and brought Islam to Afghanistan, and they were there for almost 100 years back and forth. But we also have the Chinese that were there, the Turks, the Mongolians, and of course Genghis Khan was one of the Mongolians in 1220. And he really destroyed the country. I mean, all the infrastructure of the country was destroyed by him and his grandson, Tamer Lane. That was his grandson. Now, it's funny, they call him Tamer Lane in English, but in essence, in Farsi or in Dari, it's Tamer Lung. Tamer Lung means the crippled, the guy that limps, because he had one of his legs that was broken, he would limp. But he was a big leader that destroyed the whole country in many ways. So these Chinese, Mongolians, Turks, the Persians, all had a lot of influence. And then later the British came, but that was in the 20th century. The British came really just to protect their Indian empire from the Russians. They wanted to have hold on Afghanistan so that Russians won't have any influence on their Indian empire. And of course, then the Russians came for a brief amount of time, but that was, again, between 1979 and 1989. The claim is that they came because they didn't want the Americans to put their foot in Afghanistan. And others say, well, they came to help the communist parties. So stories differ depending on who you believe. And the reason, again, I bring this is because with all those conquerors that came to that country, we have Pashtuns that claim to be from the Qais, originate from the Qais. And then we have the Baluch, Turkmenans, Aymak, Hazara, Uzbek, and Tajik. And these are from Central Asia, and some Hazaras are from the Mongolian tribes. And then Turkmen from the Turk tribes. So this is what you're seeing, a mixture of all these different ethnicities that have come to Afghanistan and made this their country. So when you go to Afghanistan, or if you meet, I'm sure a lot of you met Afghans, you'll find different races among the Afghan people. They're all Afghans, but they have different colors and different hairstyle and different face and features. The Pashtuns are the majority of the Afghans, as you can see. And some of the Pashtuns actually were in Pakistan. That's another political discourse there, because Afghans have always tried to get their land back because they have a whole bunch of Pashtuns, and Pashtunistan is in the eastern border of Afghanistan and Pakistan, and you have Peshawar full of Pashtuns. But because of the Durand Treaty and the British that came and divided these lands. So a lot of the Pashtuns were on the side of the Pakistan area, but they really were part of the Afghanistan people. Having said that, we'll go to the education religion. A lot of illiteracy in Afghanistan. Again, it's much greater in women than in men. Now, in the last 20 years, there's been some improvement, maybe about 8 to 10%. More of the women have had a chance to get educated than the men, but again, it's still at a low percent. This is the latest data. Again, it's very sad that I think that's one of the reasons why Afghanistan hasn't really progressed. Is related to the illiteracy. Now, religion is Islam. As I mentioned earlier, they had the Zoroastrianism was first, Buddhism was second, and then Islam is the third religion that was introduced to Afghanistan. And in Islam, we have the two different divisions between Shia and Sunni. Shias are mostly, the Hazaras are the Shias, and many of them are in Iran. And most of the Afghans are Pashtuns and Khaljis, and Tajiks are Sunni. But again, it's never been really an issue in Afghanistan until people have tried to, polarize them. And we have Ismailis, or a sect of Islam, Sikhs, or a sect of Hinduism and Islam, Hindus. Still, like I said, we have some Zoroastrians in parts of the country. And we had some Jewish people in Afghanistan for many, many years that had a synagogue. But in the 20th century, they immigrated to Israel when that was established. My aunts and uncles still talk about their Jewish friends that they had in Kabul and Herat and some other areas. The family structure, let me know if I'm going too fast. I hope I don't want to, I guess I'm trying to make sure that we have ample time for question and answers. The family structure in Afghanistan, I need to stress this because in Afghanistan, it's an extended family. A family is an extended family. There's no such thing as a nuclear family unless they've been westernized. Extended family meaning that, the son or the father has his sons living there, the son's wives are living there, the daughter might be there with her husband, or another uncle might be living there with his family, and the grandparents might be living all in one home. Okay, so this is, and sometimes they have their own little village or little, communal, but it's not nuclear. It's not just a husband and wife and kids. Everyone is all part of the family. They live together. Actually, when I grew up in Afghanistan, I had my uncles, my aunt, their husbands and wives were living in the same house with my grandmother. So I grew up with an extended family myself. And many Afghans are in that situation. It's a patriarchal system, as I'm sure you all know. And the head of the house is usually the oldest male in the family. He makes the decisions, and if you do anything, you have to consult with your grandfather or great uncle before you implement anything or go forward with any plans. Burden of marriage is, again, and I bring this because a lot of people don't realize in Afghanistan, even though the women are not treated as well as they should be, but they are highly valued. So the woman, when she gets married, she doesn't have to pay anything. The woman's family has to pay nothing. It's always on the male who wants the woman. So if he wants to marry her, he has to, pay for all the party, the wedding party, the clothing, the jewelry, the dowry, everything. So woman has a value, but then at the same time, as you can see, there's that contradiction where they then don't give them a lot of freedom and choice and say. I don't know. I put here, men do not shake hands with women. I'm not sure how that came up here. Yeah, men do not speak about their wives to anybody. It's a very personal issue. And they never show any kind of intimacy. In other words, here in America and European countries, even boyfriend, girlfriend, they'll kiss in the streets or in the restaurants. In Afghanistan, the husband and wife have been married for years. They will never hold hands or kiss each other or hug each other in front of anybody. And it's just a kind of a taboo. And I'm married to an American guy, and when he wanted to kiss me in front of my father and mother, I had to tell him no, and he would get furious. He didn't understand why. And I had to remind him this is the culture. It's just not acceptable to show, you know, that kind of intimacy in front of family or friends. It's just against the culture. So they would frown at that. And I have stressed that you shouldn't, because it's okay, they're husband and wife, but that's another issue, okay? And of course, protecting the family honor is very important, which means that whatever happens in the home, the kids are not allowed to talk about it outside of the home, and as well as the wife. So, which is sad, because they can be physically abused or psychologically abused, and are still abused, and but they have to keep their mouths shut because it's family honor. You don't want to display these things to the strangers, okay, or have people talk about you. And still, like when I say patriarchal and the elder members of the family, to this day, if you enter a room and you have your grandfather or father or your uncle or aunt sitting there, you greet them by kissing their hand. It's a must. It's part of the culture. Let me see here. I think I've gone too fast here. I didn't go over some things because of the PowerPoints, but I want to go back to the religion. The religion is kind of messed up there. I wanted to make a few points there. That the holy book of the Muslims is the Quran, and sadly speaking, many of the Afghans do not understand the holy book. They will recite things from it, verses, but they don't know what it means because it's in Arabic. So Afghans are not Arabs. They do not speak Arabic. They don't know what the Quran is saying. So what they do is they have the Quran, the holy book, they'll fold it in a nice, beautiful cloth and put it up on the top of the shelf. And they make amulets from some of the verses and carry it with them to protect them against evil or to give them good health or prosperity and wealth. But I also want to stress that the Muslim religion, or the Afghans, and all Muslim religions, they still uphold the 10 Commandments in the Bible and the teachings of the Prophet Jesus, peace be upon him. And a lot of people don't know that, but it is upheld because that's part of the religion. Still in Afghanistan, you'll find people calling their sons Moses, which is Musa in the Persian or Pashto language, where they call him Jesus, Isa, or David, Dawood, Abraham, Ibrahim. So it's the same names of those mentioned in the Bible, and they uphold the 10 Commandments, like I said. But they are forbidden from eating pork, meat, and any of its products. When I say any products, I mean, like, if you buy somebody a cake or cookie and take it to their home and it has lard in it, they will not eat it. Okay, that's the pork fat that they put in some of the sweets and other foods. So they will not eat anything that has pork in it. And they also don't drink alcohol. However, I can't say that for 100% because a lot of Muslims around the world do drink alcohol, but they're not supposed to. It's against the religion. And then they don't eat animals that have been slaughtered in the name of other than God the Creator. So if somebody says they slaughter an animal, say in the name of a Shinto or something like that, they're not going to eat that meat. It has to say this animal is being slaughtered in the name of God, the Creator. And I know that some people think that the Muslim God is a black stone that they worship in Mecca. No, it's the Creator of Abraham and Adam and Moses and Jesus and the rest. And they I'm sorry, just one second. Let's see. Yeah, they, like I said, they still have those same names. And so, okay, I'm going to go back to the family structure. As I mentioned, talked about the family structure some. And marriages, one thing which is not on the PowerPoint, was that marriages are arranged in childhood, and if not during childhood, at a different time in their lives, they arrange marriages for their daughters and sons. And of course, the reason being is that they want to protect their loved one, and they want to ensure a compatible and enduring relationship, because they say we got to know who the family is and so forth. And of course, they also arrange marriages for business purposes and truce. So many times when two tribes have been at war with each other, they might say, okay, let's make truce, and they marry a daughter to one of their sons. And so then they become more closer as a family. So it's for tribal purposes and, truce, as well as for business purposes to engage in all kinds of trade and other commerce issues. Again, as you know, I don't have to say this, that gender discrimination prevails. Everybody wants to have a son and less daughters, which is sad, but the daughter is still treated well, but they're always put in the back in the kitchen if they're not going to school. And many, even to this day, many of the women that I've met here and in Afghanistan haven't had the opportunity to go to school. They were just taught how to cook, clean, and be a good wife for somebody someday, or a good mother. The other thing is, and I wanted to bring something funny here, they don't really call the police very much, but there's police. So they're very strict about family honor, as I mentioned earlier. There was a guy, this is a well-known story in Afghanistan, that had two wives, and he was out working, and the two wives got into a squabble, and they started pulling each other's hair and beating each other and, assaulting us. So then the neighbors called the police, and the police came, took them to the police department and arrested them, and then called the husband to tell him what's going on with the wives. The moment he heard that his wives had made their fight or their, issues public, he told the police, they're not my wife anymore. The case is closed. He did not go and pick them up. He actually just said they're divorced. This is how much this issue of family honor is important. I mean, to imagine somebody just divorcing both wives for the sake of family honor. So this is something that is very present, especially among the Pashtun and some Hazara families. I've seen that. Okay. Let's see. What I'm gonna just try and make sure I say things that are going to be pertinent. Yeah, also in the family, again, I'll go back to know the do's and don'ts, but when you go to an Afghan's house, you have to take the shoes off. But anyway, and you have to greet everybody. Now with COVID, we're not able to greet everybody, but if there's no COVID, you have to kiss the hand of the elder ones and then kiss each person on the cheek, side to side. And if they're men, you just, nod your head and just put your hand in the chest. But that's about it. But again, family members, like if they're nieces and cousins or nephews and aunts and uncles, they can kiss each other on the cheek, and that's okay. Let's see. And if I forget something, please remind me, okay? This is the custom. This is Afghans sit on the ground. As you can see, I've had this picture here. They have what they call toshak. These are mattresses filled with cotton, and it can be very simple looking, or it could be as elaborate as these. And some of them can be made from rugs. They weave rugs in Afghanistan, and so it could be that material. They use different types of material to make toshak, and they sit on the floor. They have a big tray like that, or they may have a tablecloth on the floor, and they're very used to it. Just a few months ago, I had an Afghan family that called me and said, Dr. Salam, we want some toshak, they said mattress, okay? Toshak, they said toshak, and I thought they meant the mattress that you put on the bed, with the springs to sleep on. So I said, okay, I'm gonna come, I'll take you to the store and you can look and see what you want. So when I came, I said, you have to show me your beds and see what mattresses you need. They said, no, 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 no. We want the toshak that we sit on in the living room. I said, oh, I said, they don't have that in America. They don't have toshaks in America. I said, people sew that. The Afghans here sew those and then put a whole bunch of cotton and other cushions inside to make it look like that. So that is their preferred seating. And the other custom is, again, like I said, no shoes. If you go to someone's house and they have a rug, you have to take your shoes off. It's for hygienic purposes. And also because they pray and they want to make sure the house is clean when they pray in any area. Again, when you sit, and of course, since people are sitting on the floor, you're not allowed to extend your feet towards someone's face, or even if you're using a reclining chair, don't extend that. Let me just make sure that I've seen everything here. Yeah. Now the dress code, as you can see, is very modest. Men are not allowed to wear shorts in Afghanistan, nor are they allowed to wear sleeveless shirts. And this is kind of what they wear, shalwar kameez. And the Afghan dresses, you can see, they're not all as elaborate as the one you see. These are the ones that mostly the Kuchis can wear, where people, when they're going to a wedding or to a party, they'll wear these kind of dresses. And they have simple ones with the embroidery in the front that they can wear on a daily basis. But this is kind of the Afghan. There's always a scarf with it. Now, to tell you something interesting that's changed in Afghanistan, when I was in Afghanistan in the 60s and 70s, the Afghans never wore their scarf covering their whole hair. They had a scarf that would be over their shoulder, or they would just cover a little bit of their hair just to show that they're, Muslims. But since the coming of the Taliban and the Osama bin Laden and all this, they changed the way they wear their scarves. But most Afghan women don't wear their scarf covering their whole hair. You just put a little scarf over the head. But again, like I said, this has changed since the Osama bin Laden, the Wahhabi technique, or Taliban have entered the country. Again, you have to wear baggy clothes and not show the form of your body. Again, that's part of the Islamic religion. And men do wear skull caps, as you can see here, and they do beautiful work, embroidery on the skull caps for men, but they're not supposed to wear a lot of colorful things here. Of course, in major cities in Afghanistan, and I can't talk for Afghanistan now in the cities, but most people did wear Western clothes. And honestly speaking, when I was in Afghanistan in the 60s, I actually was able to wear my miniskirt, okay, and not even wear any pants or anything. And so did my cousins and my aunts. But that was in the major city of Kabul. So you were free to wear whatever you wanted to wear. So things have changed, and it's very disappointing, of course. Let's see. Let's go socializing and pastimes. Yes, Afghan people love to socialize. They love to have friends come over. That's another issue. Friends can come over anytime without telling you they're coming over, and you have to be ready to entertain them. This was a big challenge for my husband, my American husband, because I used to have my friends knock at the door. I'm here. We want to see you. This was here in Virginia. And he would just couldn't understand, how could they come without giving us a notice, or, so forth. I said, well, in Afghanistan, friends are your family, and they don't have to give you a notice because it's your friend and family, and they come and they're coming to see you. They really don't care if you have a clean house or anything else. They just want your company. So that's why Afghans are used to opening the door to their friends or family anytime they come. And honestly, it was very tiring, because I remember my mother, my father used to bring friends at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And even to this day, some of the husbands will bring their friends at 8 or 9 o'clock at night and expect the wife to start cooking and preparing food, and they will eat at, 11 or 12 o'clock midnight. So that's one of the customs that's there. It's not the best custom, but it is what they do. They love to get together and have friends. And of course, as I mentioned here, the hugging and kissing is not there, but we already went over that. They love to do a lot of knitting and embroidery. And of course, they also they play cards. In Afghanistan, they do play cards at different types of games they play. They play chess a lot in Afghanistan, and that's cut on board. What you see in the picture there is a cut on board. It's really from India. And it's the concept of it is like the pool, but you just have a disc and you try to get as many of the small discs into the 4 holes that's there. It's small, but people enjoy it and they get together. 4 people can play with it. But that's not all. I mean, they do the kids play they have slingshots, they bows and arrows. They don't play cowboys and Indians in Afghanistan. They don't have any types of war games. When it's war, it's real war. Okay, they do teach their sons how to use a rifle and how to protect the family, but they don't have any kind of cowboys and Indian types of games. They used to have, I don't know now, but they used to have poetry competitions in Afghanistan. They also, since 2001, they've been playing cricket and soccer more. They also have video games, as you know. They also have the game egg hunts. I'm sorry, but I don't have all that in here. But breaking the egg, just like what they do in Easter. Pigeon wrestling, they have hopscotch. So these are all games that the Afghan kids have played with, all these years. They have marbles, they play with kites, of course. I'm sure you've heard about the Afghan kite, the Kite Runner, which was a movie, but yeah, they play with kites, hide and seek, tag, all of the regular games that kids play, and they still have fun, even though they don't have all the amenities that the Western countries can provide. And they don't have ice skates or slides or sleds, to be able to go and slide, but they still sled on ice in Afghanistan, because the central part of Afghanistan up to the northern part and eastern and western parts, when it's north, it's all a lot of snow there. And then from Kabul down, not Kabul, but the southern parts of Afghanistan, it's more desert and more hot weather, where there is rarely any snow there. But it's kind of like the southern regions of America, of USA. I mean, southern parts you rarely see much snow, and the northern parts you see a lot of snow. The same thing for Afghanistan. So they did play snowballs and and then slide on ice. Music and dance is very important in Afghanistan. They do have I don't have the I wish I could have been able to show you. They do have a national dance, Atan, and they also have a national song. So Afghans love to dance, and they have musicians and play the different types of string instruments and a lot of drums. I'm surprised the music isn't here. Yeah, okay. Women don't dance in front of men. And usually when there's a dance, the men dance together as a group, and then the women dance together as a group. That's what happens. But you don't have men and women mingling together. However, nowadays, those that are in America or in the Western world, it's changed. So in the Western countries, if you go to an Afghan wedding, you'll see, hey, men and women are dancing, and it's not the same as being in Afghanistan. And this is a really interesting little story about singers. We have many wonderful singers and musicians in Afghanistan, and we've had it for ages. But some tribes, like the Pashtun, they frown at anyone who sings and dances and plays the music, because it's supposed to be of a lower class per se. And there was a Pashtun guy, this is a real story, who turned on the radio in Kandahar, and he listened to this wonderful song that was sung by a male guy, nice music, the words, everything was just a lovely song. And so he told his wife, he said, oh, what a nice singer, what a beautiful song. His wife turned at him and said, do you know who this singer is? He said, no. He said, this is your son. His son had secretly become a singer, not telling his father. But that son, he kept his name anonymous, which in Farsi means nashnas. Nashnas means anonymous. And to this day, that singer is known by anonymous. And he's a very famous singer. But his father was so upset, he said, okay, turn off the radio, because his son had secretly gone and recorded his songs and sang to the public. Anyway, paints painting and arts. Yeah, Afghans are very much into artwork and paint. You can tell it from their rugs. Some of the rugs that they weave in Afghanistan are very popular. After Iran, the Afghan rugs are the most popular rugs in the world in terms of the work that they do, the knots and the knitting and everything that they do. It's and the beautiful designs that they make. Now, what I'm showing you here is a mural of the Buddha, 1650-80, and this is inside a cave in Afghanistan in Bamyan. This is one of the oldest surviving oil paint or oil painting a mural of the Buddha. And so they did do these things. They painted and they love artwork and so forth. Let's see. And then they have national holidays. They have a solar calendar, and then they have the lunar calendar. The solar calendar is New Year's Day, is Nowruz, is March 21. All the Afghans celebrate March 21 as their New Year's Day. And this Nowruz has come down from the Zoroastrians. The Zoroastrians were the ones that delegated this, or the Zoroaster, the prophet, with his book Avesta, is the one that actually introduced Nowruz as March 21. And to this day and age, 3,000 years later, Afghans still celebrate that day as their New Year's Day. And they make these foods, which we will be making on the 21st of March. This is the 7 fruits. It's supposed to bring good luck, that they soak in fluid. They're dried fruits and something called it's called sinjit, which you don't have in America, but you can find it now in the Afghan stores. It's orange. It's covered and it's really delicious, but you have to be used to it. And then they have some plums and different types of plums, almonds and walnuts and pistachios. Afghans are very much into eating dried fruits and raisins and so forth. And then they have the Independence Day. This was Independence Day, August 21, from the British in 1919. And then the Islamic Revolution is during the time of the Russians and so forth, when the Mujahideen were fighting to oust the Russians from introducing communism and atheism, but the stories vary. And then they have a Labor Day for all the hardworking people. And Memorial Day is similar to the American Memorial Day. They are just celebrating those that are martyrs and those that have died in wars. And then the lunar calendar is according to the Islamic calendar, which is according to the moon, as you know, the lunar calendar. And so they have their holiday, which is Eid al-Fitr. That's meaning the time when Ramadan ends and they are able to celebrate and celebrate the end of Ramadan, which is a month of fasting. And Arafah is a day just the day before Hajj. And then they have the Eid al-Adha. The Eid al-Adha is a festival of commemorating Prophet Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his son for God. So that's why when people go to the pilgrimage, they believe that the Mecca is the Kaaba is the house that Abraham, the prophet, built, and as a place of worship, and that he was going to bring his son to sacrifice for God. And of course, as you believe, and Christians and Jews believe, and we believe that it didn't happen, and there was a ram instead, and God said you fulfilled your promise. And so all the Muslims on that day, they have to sacrifice a lamb as a commemoration and distribute the meat to the poor and the needy. And that's exactly what's done usually every year after the Hajj is completed. Ashura, this is interesting. A lot of Muslims, even though they're Muslims, they will celebrate Ashura, which marks the day the Prophet Moses parted the Red Sea and saved the children of Israel from the pharaohs or bondage. And then we have Maulid Nabi, that's the birthday of the Prophet Muhammad, but not everybody celebrates it, but it is something that people do pray and worship, and they send blessings to him, basically. Let's see if I got that all covered. And Afghans are known for their, hospitality, If somebody enters their home, they have to make sure that they're able to entertain them, give them something to eat or drink. It's a must. It's just if someone comes to my house and I don't give them something, I haven't really fulfilled the tradition or the culture of the Afghan people, and they'll be very offended or insulted. So whenever any family member or any friend comes from they're Afghans, I make sure I have something to treat them with, and that's what it is. And it's sometimes it's a little cumbersome because you go to somebody's house for a different reason, and then they insist that you have to eat, and they put things on the table and bring food and drinks for you to have. That's part of the culture. Please don't be offended. If you can take even a small piece of a walnut or a raisin, do it. If you're totally against it, just say I'm fasting, or I'm not well to eat anything. But it's part of the culture. If you don't take it, they're going to take offense. And of course, let's see. I wanted to say something about loyalty. He's guaranteed refuge to those in need. Actually, there's a famous story about a woman that was a famous robber because her husband was a robber and he died, and so then she took over. This was she has a name. The name was Shinkhale. Shinkhale was her name. It meant that she had a green tattoo on her forehead. And she actually used to go to people's home, rob them, never hurt anybody, but rob and then get out. And so then the police caught this band of robbers. And so she went to actually a home of one of my great grandmothers and said, please, we're seeking some help. We're not going to hurt you. Just want to find a hide from the police. And they hit them. The police never got to them. And the same with a guy. There was a gentleman who gave refuge to a man that was running and said, please give me some safe place. Some people are trying to kill me. Give me some room. I'll be here just for 2 days and I'll leave. I won't hurt you. And so the man gave him refuge. But what happened was later he learned that guy that he gave refuge to was the killer of his son, had killed his son in some kind of a squabble. And so this is how Afghans are. Things might have changed over the last 20 years because they've learned different things, but this is how the hospitality is. They will still give refuge even if, to whatever conditions or situation the person's in. Let's see. Okay. And so here I am with the do's and don'ts. So Afghans always greet each other with salam. The Arabs go a little further, say salam alaikum, but the Afghans say salam. That means peace be on you. They do shake hands. Again, it's more among men than it is among women. And they do hug. Men in Afghanistan do hug each other and may even kiss each other's cheeks. Women also, they shake, no, they don't really shake hands. They really mostly hug and kiss each other's cheeks. As you know, men and women are segregated. They don't sit in the same seat together. So if there's a party or there's a gathering, the men are separate from the women. It happens in weddings, it happens in funerals, and most places. Let's see. So the do's are, you can shake hands with the men, and with the women, just place your hand in the heart and just nod to them. If they give you food or drink, if you feel comfortable and safe, take it, because if you don't, they'll be offended. Please remove your shoes if you're entering their home, especially if they have a carpet. If they don't have a carpet, then you tell them, oh, my feet are going to get cold. Let me see here. I think I talked about don't stretch your feet or put your feet in front of somebody's face. Is extremely offensive and disrespectful. And please don't tell Afghans if they're Arabs. They don't speak Arabic. They're not Arabs. They're, as I mentioned, they've come from totally different backgrounds, as I've shown you. And when you go to someone's house, I know a lot of Afghans bring food and different types of fruits to people's home when they visit. They always they come with a handful of something. But if you're going to take Afghans any basket of food or something, don't take any wine or liquor to them or beer, okay? Unless you're pretty sure they're your friends that might bring beer with you, but don't take it to the home. And also pork products. I know a lot of baskets have salamis that have pork in them or bolognas that have pork in them. So please don't take that to them. They're not going to eat the meat. They only want meat that is slaughtered in a halal way, taking God's name. And there's some people that might still eat Chick-fil-A and hamburgers because, but again, main thing is the pork. Do not take the pork products and ham or something like that. Very offensive. Let's see. And these are my references. And I think Louis Dupree is an excellent book if anybody is interested. It's very, very detailed. I mean, this man known as the nitty-gritties of Afghans in Afghanistan. He's a remarkable researcher and writer. And the last one, The Culture by Aaron Bunting, it's really a good one for kids to learn about Afghan culture. I enjoyed the one by Intizar, very nice book that he's written on understanding Afghan culture. He goes more into cultural issues and really delves into the psychodynamics of the Afghan people. And of course, the companion guide is nice, gives you more historical facts. And a culture and political history it's more of a political history. It's well done. So these are some of the references if anyone's interested. Of course, you can always go to Google too, get some references these days. Thank God for Google as well. And that's all I have to say for now. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. I may have missed things, but let me see. How can I get out of here?
I don't see any questions in the chat yet, so feel free to drop them there and I'll read them to Dr. Salam, or just unmute yourself and speak up.
I have a question. So I'm surprised to find that the Quran is not published in any other languages rather than.
It is now. It is now. Oh yeah, it's written in many languages now. Okay. But remember, I also mentioned to you that roughly 50% of Afghans are illiterate, right, men, and maybe 60% of women are illiterate. So they don't, even if it's written in Persian or Pashto, they don't know how to read it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jody is asking, what are the relations like between the Afghans and Jewish communities in the US?
That's a very good question. We've all had wonderful Jewish friends, and we get along pretty well. I think we have a lot in common in terms of believing in, the same prophets that they believe in Moses. Like I said, we had the Shura, and the Jewish people are very that I've seen and I've worked with. They're very open to having people over. They love to come in, very similar in terms of friendships and family dynamics, So the Afghans, they've always gotten along with Jewish people. And the only reason the Jewish people left was because Israel was established. So that's why they left, but there were never any harm towards any Jewish people in Afghanistan. Even in Iran, I lived in Iran for many years. There are many Jewish people in Iran, and they're flourishing. There have been no problems per se that I can see. We were there 4 years in Iran. They lived very peacefully and very happily. So there's and actually, according to the Islamic religion, we're not allowed to say anything negative to the Jewish people or to the Christian people or anybody to that extent, because they're part of the same Abrahamic religions. They're part of the same people that came from, created by the creator or having Adams, being the children of Adam. So they don't have any animosity towards the Jewish people. Now, if you're asking me about the Zionism, that's a different issue. That's a political issue. Zionism is a totally different issue. They're very sensitive about Zionism, but it has nothing to do with the Jewish Judaic religion or people.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Salam. So there's another question from Marilyn. Does unmarried daughter have a subservient role in a household?
Yes. The daughter is always expected to cook, clean, serve the father, the brothers, everything. Actually, some of the daughters take the roles of the mother in terms of like taking care of the younger children. Yes, they're very subservient, even to this day, they are. But some of them, they look at it as learning. They look at it as a learning experience, that they learn how to become a mother or a wife in the future. So they don't really look at it in a negative way, but it becomes a problem when the girl wants to go to school. You know, that's where it's really a problem. And so a lot of girls have been kept at home and deprived of education, which is really a crime. It's an absolute crime against women.
Margaret is asking, from the perspective of a psychiatrist, what's one aspect of American culture that could improve Afghans' mental health? And one aspect of Afghan culture that could improve Americans' mental health?
Wow, that's a loaded question. So what's an aspect of the American culture that can help the Afghan mental health? I think the support that the Americans are giving means a lot. The fact that the Americans are actually there, talking to them, willing to help them, and understanding them and respecting their culture, that helps their mental health, okay? Because they feel that there's someone there that's gonna, be there for them. So they're already very, very grateful. I mean, they've honestly, to tell you the truth, Afghans have always loved Americans. They've always looked up to Americans, because this is a country that within just a few hundred years developed to become a mighty power, not only just in politically and economically, but scientifically in so many areas. So they've always admired the American people. So I think what everyone is doing is providing them, psychological care, medical care, being there for them, that's going to help them a great deal. That'll ease them. But I think one of the main thing is if they can help get some of their families out. Like I said, the Afghans are an extended family. If the mother or grandfather or mother is stuck there and they might get killed, that's the thing that they would really feel at ease if somebody can help bring them here too, or take them out of the country. But I think the Americans are doing everything right in terms of helping them. But I guess one thing they should not do is not make them feel like they're losers, because they've lost their country, that they're, not a very civilized people, or they're not very educated people. Don't make them feel that way, or that they're poor and they're begging here, because Afghans, once they are on their feet, they will give back. They're not just takers, but they actually give back, and they love to help. Like I said, the hospitality and loyalty goes far. And the Afghan people, I think, one thing that I think would help is, I think from the American perspective, I think to teach people the social aspects, I think is an important issue. To show them that you got to call before you come to somebody's house, okay, is important. And to have some boundaries between people, which they lack, unfortunately. From the Afghan perspective, I think Afghans can help with the American to keep the family structure. I think all Afghans are really concerned about how the family structure in America is kind of disintegrated. Everybody's very lonely, alone, isolated. They don't keep in touch with their cousins or uncles or aunts or grandparents, or something like a grandmother or grandfather is deprived of seeing their own grandparent and grandchildren because, the wife is not on good terms. Or a father who loves his kids is deprived of seeing his children because the mother and the father are separated, unless there's a major issue in terms of abuse, physical abuse or sexual abuse. The grandparents and fathers and mothers shouldn't be deprived of seeing the children or the grandchildren. The family unit is so important. I think, as you know, and most of us know, that people that are alone, isolated, are more prone to depression and suicide. It's when they have a friend, a family member that cares and is there, cousins, uncles, aunts. I have cousins that are like my third cousin, that we keep in touch. Third cousins, my father has third cousins that are still alive and they call me from different places. That's what it is. And it really has a wonderful feeling that you have people that still know you and care about you and call you, that you can go to and visit. But if you live an isolated life and you're all alone, you don't know who to call, who to go to, or nobody enters your home. That's why we have prevalence of depression and drug and alcohol use in this country, which is really, really just kills my heart, and I'm going to show you something from Peanuts. I don't know how many of you guys like Peanuts, but I love Peanuts. And and if you see this peanut, it says happiness. What it says is, let me see if I can get it closer. Happiness is having a friend at your door, you know? And that is really, I try to teach my patients when I was with bon secours or in VA, I should make sure that they realize that friendship and social interactions are very important. It's very vital to the human being, to the human mind and mental health, extremely vital. So that's what I want to, the Afghans can bring is the social aspect. Socialization is very important and healthy for all people, not to shun people, not to push people away, but, you know, tolerate, you know, I think tolerance is a big thing. You need to learn to tolerate one another, you know, and Afghans do tolerate each other. That's why they're big families. I hope that answers some of it. I mean, I can probably do a better job if I'm more focused on it another time, but I think that's one thing that could help.
There's one question from Dorothy, and then Janice, I'll let you unmute and share your question. So she's asking if Afghans would be comfortable being invited by an American for a meal if halal meat is served.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They love to, you know, visit and make friendships. They love that. Like I told you, Afghans love, you know, social interactions and friendships, and they'll be tickled. I think it'll be wonderful. Yeah, and then that's how you show them what the American food is like. And you know, not all Afghans have to eat halal meat. Many Afghans, you know, eat hamburgers. They're not halal, you know, because there's some controversy about eating the meat because you know, there's some scholars that say you can eat meat that the Christians, the Jews cook, okay, because they're people of the book, and it's in their holy book that eat the foods of the people of the books, which is the Christian Jews. But others say no, it has to be slaughtered the right way. So we have these two different schools of thought, but many Afghans have no problem eating, you know, the food that the Americans or anyone would cook, okay? Unless they'll tell you that if it's halal or not. You just ask them though. If they say no, it's not a big deal, then go ahead. But usually they'll eat it because, like I said, a lot of the Afghans are eating hamburgers and Chick-fil-A and hot dogs and things that are, you know, made here in America, and they're considered clean to them. Does that answer the question?
I think so. Thank you. Janice, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you. But this is so fascinating, and I hope I can keep it in my head longer than most things. But I wonder if Dr. Salam has a feeling for how someone who has just come here would understand or think that, you know, when they first meet us, what their expectations would be in terms of how we would act or how we could help them or that sort of thing.
I mean, I think it depends on what role a person is playing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a caseworker, or if you're someone who's giving them a drive, you know, driving them somewhere, or you're someone that's bringing in products, then that's okay. I mean, they expect that, but they expect you to, they really expect to have more close relationships with people. They don't want you just be someone to deliver something and goes off and then you never see them. They are hoping that you can continue to be a friend and they can invite you and you know, do things for you too. As you know, human nature is such that we don't want to just take, it makes us feel good when we give. And so the expectations, I think the Americans are meeting the expectations, you know, most of the time. But I think it's just a matter of what the role is at that moment, you know. It depends on the role of the person.
Not be so nervous about it, but
can you give me an example, like what kind of?
Well, I was just thinking, if you know, if I went, for example, to start working with someone on their language or something. You know, I lived in Japan for a long time, and the students there were so shy, and you know, that sort of thing. And I didn't know if Afghan culture was so that they would be afraid or nervous or whatever.
Oh, they're very eager. Every Afghan that I've met and known, they're very eager to learn the English language. They love the English and they would love to learn the English language. I don't think it should be any problem. They will welcome you love you forever. Okay. Any education you give them, the people that are here, they're hungry. They're very hungry to learn and to be able to get on their feet and live their productive lives. They really are. Unless you have somebody with a mental illness, that's a different issue. But the majority are really, and they will welcome it with their whole heart. So if you do it, they'll love you forever.
That's good to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey.
Dr. Salam, following up on your comment about, you know, the culture being very warm and wanting to make friends, I know that a lot of times our volunteer roles are very limited, you know, like you said, like maybe they're just there to pick up and drive them to a class, and that person doesn't have enough capacity in their own life to give more than that. Do you have a way that would be a good way to communicate that boundary that maybe an Afghan would understand? I know that, like, language wise it might be difficult, but do you have any suggestions about how to communicate that you care and that you want to help, but that's sort of your role and that's it?
That's an excellent question. Well, a lot of times, of course, a smile always helps. You know, it's an amazing what a smile can do. And the way we present ourselves is important, right? Because people can read body language. So if you present yourself like, hey, I'm here to help you, they'll recognize that you're here to help. But if you ask them about their, you know, their name, you know, and ask them like, you don't have to ask a lot of personal family things, but okay, you know, what did you go to school? You know, just general questions. And do you like the city? You know, what do you like to eat? Have you eaten American food? Just, or any, you know, music, if they like music, just talk about something general, you know, just engage in some conversation to let them know that they're human and you're human and you want to engage in some dialogue, you know. It can be very simple things. How do you like this weather? You know, or do you like the music? I'm going to play some music. Would you like me to put on some music? You know, just simple stuff, just to start a dialogue would help a great deal. That they know that they're not just a robotic, but, you know, you're actually wanting to engage as, you know, from one human to another human being. You can ask them about their country. How was the weather in their country? You know, you don't have to ask about the political issues and all the other pain, but you can just at least ask, you know, what kind of fruits they liked, or what, you know, what kind of foods they like. Do they like the American food, you know, and things like that. Just simple talk. And a lot of Americans know some of the singers, some of the foods, especially the younger folks that have come. They're very well versed in many things. I'm surprised, you know. So yeah, just feel free, just be yourself and just let them know you're here to help. And of course, you ask them if they're comfortable, they don't want, you know, the cars, you know, whatever you're doing, you know, just carry, you know, start a dialogue of just simple stuff. Just we do with with our own American people, you know, we just, you know, you see an American say, hey, this was a nice weather. Oh my, that was funny. Or did you hear that? You know, just something that's very simple and just general, not very personal. Does that help at all, Kate? I mean,
Yeah, I know that we're at time. I think the question is, so if when you're done, just making them, so being warm while you're present with them, even if your intention is not to continue a relationship with them.
Yeah, you can always be warm without, you could, yeah. They will remember that. Remember that, I don't know if you remember Maya Angelou, you know, one of the things she said, which was very impressive, was that people can give you things and you'll forget that they gave you something. People will say things, you'll forget that they said something. But how somebody made you feel will never be forgotten. So it's really how you make these people feel. If you make them feel like they're welcome and you're happy to help them, they will sense it and they'll never forget that and they'll appreciate that. Just don't make them feel like they're a burden on your shoulders, you know? I mean, I know they can be because we're all overwhelmed, but you got to just keep a good face.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Salam. We are a little after 3 if some people need to leave. And if others can stay and you can stay, then it can continue. But just wanted to give people an opportunity to leave if they needed to.
How do I get stop share? Okay, there it is.
I think June had her hand up or their hand up.
I did have my hand up. Um, I have what might be a silly question, but I saw a comment to the last lady. I found I get immense leadway because I try really hard to learn the names of the family members. I work with a family that has 12 members in it. So that's a significant challenge because of the numbers, but also because of the names. But I've actually learned names and I now know who they all are. And just that in itself has been a great way to cause that family to feel that I am a friend. And I'm grateful for that. So I just share that for
That's
other people.
wonderful. Absolutely. When you take someone's name and know their names, it makes it feel like you recognize them as an entity, as a person.
Exactly right.
Absolutely.
And they've
Excellent.
helped me with the pronunciation, so it's working. But this is the question I have. Two of the family members are females, adults, and we have had to go out to doctor's appointments and such. And on both occasions, it was freezing, freezing cold. And both times the ladies wore sandals only and no socks. And I'm just so nervous and anxious for them about that. Is it more a cultural thing, or do Afghani women get cold feet and sooner or later are happy to have socks and shoes? I guess
Some
that's my
of
question.
them, it depends on where they lived in Afghanistan, okay? If
Yeah.
they lived in the upper northeast or the north parts of Afghanistan where there's lots of snow, they might be very used to cold weather, okay? And they don't really care. And that's happened numerous times. But if they are from the southern part of the country where they're not used to snow as much or cold as much, and they're wearing sandals, it might be helpful to ask, do you have shoes, you know? And I do that. I've seen some of the Afghans that have here taken in places, oh, I'm warm. And it was like 38 degrees or 35 degrees. They were just wearing a shirt and very comfortable. But they said, no, I was born in so-and-so area. And so then I realized that, you know, they had a lot of tolerance to the weather. So it depends
Okay.
on where they were raised. If they're
I will
comfortable,
ask that
that's fine.
question.
Yeah. Say, do you have shoes? Or are you comfortable? Are you warm enough? And if they say yes, then don't worry about it.
Okay,
You know?
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hey, Farah, I don't know. I can't see the screen. I don't know what happened. I'm trying to get out of this, take this off the screen. Okay. That's good. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much, Doctor. It was very informative.
Well, I'm glad. I hope I contributed something.
Very much so.
And it's a changing culture, you know. This is evolving every 20 years to something different. I don't know what's going to happen in 20 years if I'm still alive. We'll see. But again, thank you all for all your help and, you know, time-consuming efforts that you put to help these people. They do appreciate it, and they will appreciate it. Okay. So they
Thank
may
you
not
so
always be able
much.
to express themselves. You know, it's